A terrified little boy, trapped in a nightmare no child should ever face. His only hope? A silent cry for help. Then, in a crowded rest stop, a battle-hardened Marine noticed something wrong. What happened next would change both their lives forever. This is a story of courage, intuition, and the unbreakable bond between strangers. Before we dive into this incredible true story, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The rest stop. The sun hung low over the Tennessee highway, casting long shadows across the asphalt as cars whizzed by in a blur of motion. The rest stop outside Knoxville was a familiar sight for travelers, neon signs buzzing, the smell of fast food lingering in the air, and the constant hum of engines idling in the parking lot. Families stretched their legs, truckers fueled up on coffee, and kids begged for snacks from vending machines. 6-year-old Liam Carter stood frozen near the bathrooms, his small fingers clutching a worn-out stuffed dinosaur named Rex. His throat felt tight, his breaths coming in shallow little gasps. The man beside him, Uncle Rick, had a grip on his wrist that was just a little too tight, his fingers pressing into Liam's skin like a warning. "Bathroom break. Then we're back on the road," Rick said, his voice low and firm. Liam nodded, but his stomach twisted. Mom didn't send me with him. Mom didn't even know. The memory of that morning flashed in his mind. The way Rick had pulled up to his school, saying Mom was sick, and he had to pick Liam up early. The way he hadn't let Liam call her. The way the car just kept driving farther and farther from home. Liam's teacher, Ms. Alvarez, had taught the class something important just last week. "If you're ever in trouble and can't speak, there's a secret signal," she'd said, pressing 3 fingers into her palm. "You tap your leg like this. Tap, tap, tap. It means help me. Someone might notice." Now, standing in the middle of a crowded rest stop, Liam curled his fingers inward, leaving 3 raised. He tapped them against his thigh. Quick and quiet. "Help me. Help me. Help me." People walked past. A woman laughing into her phone, a trucker adjusting his cap, a family herding their kids toward the picnic area. No one looked down. No one saw. Then, the diner door swung open, and a man in a faded Marine Corps t-shirt stepped out, stretching his arms. Sergeant Daniel Reyes had been on the road for hours, driving home after his latest deployment. His muscles ached, his mind still half-trapped in the rhythm of barracks life. He scanned the rest stop out of habit. Exits, crowds, potential threats. His gaze landed on the boy, small, maybe 6 or 7, wide-eyed, clutching a dinosaur. And there, the kid's fingers tapped against his leg, in a pattern Daniel recognized instantly. Tap, tap, tap. His breath hitched. That wasn't just a fidget. That was a signal. Daniel's training kicked in. Don't startle the situation. Don't let the suspect panic. He forced himself to move casually, pretending to check his phone as he edged closer. The man with the boy, Rick, had a tense jaw, eyes darting around like he was counting seconds. Liam's gaze flickered up, meeting Daniel's for half a heartbeat. The fear in them was unmistakable. Daniel bent down like he was tying his shoe, coming eye level with the boy. His voice was barely a whisper, just loud enough for Liam to hear. "I see you, buddy." Liam's breath stuttered. For the first time in hours, hope flickered in his chest. Then Rick yanked his arm. "Come on, Liam. Time to go." The boy stumbled forward, but not before dropping Rex onto the pavement. Daniel waited until they were a few steps away before scooping up the dinosaur, and that's when he felt it. Something tucked inside the toy's stitching. A crumpled photo. Liam and a woman, smiling in front of a school playground. Scrawled on the back in a child's messy handwriting. "If lost, call 555-0192. Daniel pulled out his phone. This wasn't over. The whisper that changed everything. Daniel's fingers tightened around the crumpled photo. The woman in the picture had the same wide, hopeful eyes as Liam, his mother, no doubt. And that number scribbled on the back? A lifeline. He didn't hesitate. Thumbing the digits into his phone, he pressed call and held his breath. 1 ring. 2. Then a woman's voice, frantic and raw. "Hello? Who is this?" Daniel kept his voice low, eyes tracking Rick's retreating figure as he dragged Liam toward a beat-up pickup truck near the edge of the parking lot. "Ma'am, my name's Daniel Reyes. I think I just met your son, Liam. He's got a stuffed dinosaur, brown hair." A choked sob cut him off. "Oh my God. Liam? Is he okay? Where is he? Please tell me he's safe." Daniel's stomach twisted. "Not safe. Not yet. He's with a man. Calls himself Uncle Rick. They're heading to a truck now. I need you to stay calm. I'm going to help him, but I need you to tell me what's going on." The woman, Mia Carter, she gasped out, was supposed to pick Liam up from school today. But when she got there, he was gone. The office said his uncle had signed him out early. Except Mia didn't have a brother. Rick was her ex-boyfriend's cousin, a man Liam had met once at a barbecue 2 years ago. He has no right to take him. Mia's voice cracked. "I called the police, but they said since he's a relative, they can't." A car door slammed in the distance. Daniel's head snapped up. Rick was shoving Liam into the passenger seat. "Asterisk, ma'am, I have to go. Call 911 now. Tell them your son's at the Knoxville rest stop off I-40 with an unauthorized adult. I'll stall them." Asterisk. He hung up and broke into a jog, forcing himself not to sprint. "Don't spook him. Play it cool." Rex the dinosaur dangled from his hand as he approached the truck. Rick was behind the wheel now, jamming keys into the ignition. Liam sat rigid in his seat, face pale. Daniel rapped his knuckles on the driver's window. Rick rolled it down a crack, eyes narrowed. "Yeah. Hey, man." Daniel held up the stuffed animal, grinning like this was just some friendly mix-up. "Kid dropped this back there. Figured he'd want it." Liam's breath hitched. Rick's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "Thanks." He reached for the toy, but Daniel pulled it back just an inch. "Cute kid. Yours." "Nephew." Rick's jaw clenched. "We're in a hurry." Daniel leaned in, voice dropping to something conspiratorial. "Look, I get it. Road trips with kids suck. But hey," he nodded toward the rest stop diner. "You want to grab a coffee for the road? My treat. Not thirsty? Come on, man. I just got back from overseas. Could use a friendly face." Daniel slapped the truck door like they were old buddies. 5 minutes. Rick's eyes flicked to the exit, then back to Daniel. Weighing the risk, Liam piped up, small and shaky. "I have to pee again." "You just went," Rick snapped. Daniel saw his opening. "Dude, don't make him hold it. You know how kids are." Next thing you know, he's whining about wet seats. He winked at Liam. "Right, buddy?" Liam nodded fast. Rick exhaled hard. "Fine. 2 minutes." As Liam scrambled out, Daniel caught his arm, leaning down like he was adjusting the kid's shoelace. "Police are coming," he whispered. "Stay close to me." Liam's fingers curled around his sleeve. Trust, pure and desperate. Then Rick grabbed Liam's shoulder. "Bathroom's this way." Daniel fell into step beside them, keeping his tone light. "So where you guys headed?" "Family reunion," Rick muttered. "Nice. Where at?" "Just up the road." Cool. Daniel thumbed his phone in his pocket. Still no cops. He needed more time. They reached the restroom. Rick shoved Liam toward the door. "Hurry up." Daniel crossed his arms, blocking Rick's path inside. "Hey, man, let's let the kid have some privacy." Rick's face darkened. "You his babysitter now?" "Just saying." Daniel held his ground. "You seem a little tense." A beat of silence. Then Rick's hand twitched toward his waistband. Daniel's muscles coiled. Weapon? Before he could react, a wail of sirens cut through the air. Rick's head whipped toward the parking lot. 2 squad cars screeched to a halt near his truck. "What the hell?" Liam burst out of the bathroom, slamming into Daniel's legs. Rick made a break for it, but Daniel was faster. He tackled him to the ground just as officers sprinted over, shouting. "He's armed." Daniel barked, pinning Rick's wrist as a gun clattered onto the pavement. Chaos erupted. Cuff clicks, radio static, and then, Liam, a woman scream. Mia Carter, hair wild, tears streaming, shoved past the cops and dropped to her knees. crushing Liam against her chest. Daniel staggered back, chest heaving. It was over until Rick, in cuffs, spat at his feet. This isn't finished. And Daniel knew, somehow, he was right. The race against time. The rest stop erupted into controlled chaos. Officers swarmed around Rick, yanking him to his feet as he hurled curses at Daniel. Mia clung to Liam, her entire body trembling as she buried her face in his hair, whispering promises that he was safe now. Daniel stepped back, giving them space, but his eyes never left Rick. There was something in the man's glare, a venom, a promise. This isn't over. The words slithered through the air like a threat. A uniformed officer approached Daniel, hand extended. "Sergeant Reyes? I'm Deputy Harris. We got the call from Ms. Carter. You're the one who intervened?" Daniel nodded, his adrenaline still humming under his skin. "Yeah, the kid used a silent SOS signal. 3 taps. Military hand code. Knew something was wrong." Harris whistled low. "Good catch. We've got an APB out on Rick Dawson. Turns out he's got a record. Assault, unlawful confinement. Not his first time trying to pull something like this." Daniel's jaw tightened. He was armed, pistol tucked in his waistband. Harris's expression darkened. "We'll add weapons charges." He glanced over at Mia, who was now speaking to a female officer. Liam pressed tightly against her side. "She's lucky you were here." Daniel didn't feel lucky. He felt wired, restless, like the moment before a firefight, when the air was thick with tension, and the next move could mean life or death. Then a small hand tugged at his sleeve. Liam stood there, Rex the dinosaur clutched in his arms, his eyes red but dry. "You saved me," he whispered. Daniel crouched down to his level. "You save yourself, kid. That signal? That was smart." Liam swallowed hard. "Ms. Alvarez taught us. In case bad people try to take us." Daniel's chest ached. No 6-year-old should have to know that kind of fear. He ruffled Liam's hair. "Well, you did good. Real good." Mia stepped forward, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't even know how to thank you." Daniel stood, shaking his head. No thanks needed. But Mia wasn't having it. She grabbed his hand, squeezing hard. Yes, there is. If you hadn't been here, if you hadn't seen him." Her voice broke. Daniel understood. Some debts couldn't be put into words. Harris cleared his throat. "We'll need statements from all of you. Sergeant, you mind coming down to the station?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, of course." As they walked toward the squad cars, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on his back. He turned, scanning the parking lot. Nothing, but the itch between his shoulder blades remained. At the station, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Daniel recounted the events to a detective. Mia and Liam sat in a nearby room, Liam wrapped in a blanket, sipping apple juice while a social worker spoke softly to them. The detective, a grizzled man named Holloway, leaned back in his chair. "Dawson's not talking." Lawyered up immediately. Daniel frowned. He planned this. The fake sign out at the school, the route. He knew what he was doing. Holloway nodded. "We're digging into his connections. See if he had help." He hesitated. "You should know, though he asked about you." Daniel stilled. "What?" Kept muttering about the meddling Marine. "Wanted your name." A cold knot formed in Daniel's gut. This wasn't just some random kidnapping. Rick had a grudge against Mia, against Liam, and now against him. Holloway must have seen the shift in his expression. "You got somewhere to stay tonight?" Daniel hadn't thought that far ahead. Was just passing through, heading home to Ohio. Holloway slid a card across the table. "Local motel. Safe, clean. I'd feel better knowing you weren't on the road tonight." Daniel pocketed the card. "You think he's got people on the outside?" "I think," Holloway said slowly, "that guys like Dawson don't like losing, and they really don't like being humiliated in front of cops." Daniel exhaled sharply. "Noted." As he stood to leave, Mia appeared in the doorway, Liam half asleep in her arms. "They're letting us go," she said softly. "My sister's driving in from Nashville to pick us up." Daniel nodded. "Good. That's good. Mia hesitated, then stepped closer. I know you probably want to get back on the road, but... She bit her lip. Would you stay? Just until my sister gets here? I don't. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't feel safe yet. Daniel looked at Liam, his small face pressed against his mother's shoulder. Exhausted. Terrified. He made a decision. I'm not going anywhere. Night fell as they waited in the station's lobby, the hum of the vending machine the only sound. Liam dozed on a row of chairs, Rex tucked under his chin. Mia stared at the clock, her knee bouncing. Daniel kept his back to the wall, watching the doors. Then headlights. A car pulled into the lot. Mia tensed. Daniel stood, positioning himself between her and the entrance. The door swung open. A woman rushed in, Mia's sister, judging by the same wild curls and sharp chin. Oh my God, Mia. Mia burst into tears, collapsing into her sister's arms. Daniel stepped back, giving them space. But as Mia's sister hugged her tight, her eyes locked onto Daniel over Mia's shoulder, and she mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Daniel gave a small nod. Then he glanced out the window and froze. Across the street, a shadowed figure leaned against a parked car, watching. Then, as quickly as Daniel spotted him, the figure slipped into the darkness. Gone. But the message was clear. This wasn't over. The shadow in the night. The station's flickering fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the empty lobby. Mia and her sister, Jess, huddled together on hard plastic chairs, whispering as Liam slept fitfully, his fingers still curled tightly around Rex. Daniel stood near the window, his body tense. That figure outside, gone now, but the unease lingered like a bad smell. He rubbed his jaw, the stubble rough under his fingers. He should leave, get back on the road. But something, maybe instinct, maybe duty, kept his boots planted. Deputy Harris pushed through the swinging doors, a paper cup of coffee in hand. He nodded at Daniel. You sticking around? Daniel kept his voice low, till they're picked up. He hesitated. You got security cameras out front? Harris frowned. Yeah, why? Thought I saw someone watching the station. Harris's grip tightened on the cup. Description? Too dark. Male, maybe. Just standing there. Harris exhaled through his nose. Could be nothing. Could be one of Dawson's buddies. He pulled out his radio. I'll have a unit sweep the area. Daniel nodded, but the itch between his shoulder blades didn't fade. Across the room, Mia stood abruptly, her phone clutched in her hand. Jess, the car's here. Jess scooped up Liam, who whimpered but didn't wake. Daniel moved to help. Grabbing the duffel bag of snacks and water bottles the social worker had scrounged up, Mia touched his arm. You don't have to. I'll walk you out, he said firmly. The night air was thick with humidity, the parking lot lit by buzzing street lamps. A silver SUV idled near the entrance, a middle-aged man behind the wheel. Jess hurried toward it, but Mia hesitated, turning to Daniel. You saved my son, she said, voice cracking. I don't even know your last name. Reyes, he said. Daniel Reyes. She swallowed hard. If you're ever in Nashville... He gave a small smile. I'll look you up. A sharp click echoed across the lot. Daniel's head snapped up. There, near the dumpsters. A glint of metal. Gun. He moved before he thought, shoving Mia behind him as he yanked his own weapon from his waistband, hidden but never far. Get down! The SUV's window exploded. Screams. Screeching tires. Daniel barely registered just diving into the car with Liam as he returned fire. 3 sharp cracks that sent the shadow near the dumpster scrambling back. Then tires squealing. A dark sedan peeled out of the lot. Daniel sprinted forward, but the car vanished into the night. Silence. Then chaos. Harris and 2 other deputies burst outside, weapons drawn. Mia sobbed against the SUV's door. Liam's wails cut through the air like a siren. Daniel's hands shook as he holstered his gun. Not random. Not a coincidence. They'd been watched. And now they'd been hunted. Back inside, the station was a flurry of activity. More cops. Radios blaring. A forensics team dusting for shell casings. Holloway cornered Daniel near the coffee machine, his face grim. You're sure it was the same guy from earlier? Daniel clenched his fists. Didn't get a look. But they weren't shooting at me. Holloway's jaw tightened. Dawson's got friends. And they really don't like witnesses. Daniel's stomach turned. Mia and Liam were supposed to be safe. Nowhere was safe. Across the room, Mia rocked Liam in her arms, her face streaked with tears. Jess argued with the detective, her voice rising. You can't expect us to just go home. They shot at us. Daniel made a decision. He crossed the room in 3 strides. You can't stay in Nashville. Mia looked up, eyes wide. What? They know your sister's car. They know where you're headed. He crouched in front of her. You need to disappear. Just for a while. Liam sniffled, peering at Daniel with red-rimmed eyes. Like hide and seek? Daniel's chest ached. Yeah, buddy, like hide and seek. Jess crossed her arms. And where the hell are they supposed to go? Daniel met Mia's gaze. I've got a cabin. Up in the Smokies. No one knows about it but me. Mia's breath hitched. You're asking me to trust a stranger. I'm asking you to trust a man who saved your son. He held out his keys. Your call. Silence stretched. Then, slowly, Mia took them. 2 hours later, a convoy of unmarked cars escorted Mia, Liam, and Jess to a secluded motel outside Knoxville. Daniel followed on his motorcycle, scanning every shadow, every passing car. No tails. Yet, as Mia checked in under a fake name, Daniel pulled Jess aside. You can't tell anyone where they are. Not your husband. Not your best friend. No one. Jess's eyes flashed. You think I'd risk them? I think desperation makes people sloppy. He handed her a burner phone. My number's programmed in. Call if anything feels off. She pocketed it with a stiff nod. Inside the motel room, Liam was already asleep on one of the double beds, Rex tucked under his arm. Mia stood by the window, staring at the darkened highway. You should get some rest, Daniel said quietly. She didn't turn. They'll find us. Not tonight. Finally, she faced him. Why are you doing this? The question hung in the air. Daniel thought of his little brother, taken by a crowd at a fair when he was 6, found hours later, sobbing behind a cotton candy stand. Thought of the men he'd lost overseas because he missed the signs. Because I can, he said simply. Mia studied him, then nodded. Thank you. Daniel headed for the door. Lock up. I'll be outside. He settled against the railing, the night stretching before him. Somewhere out there, Dawson's friends were looking, and Daniel would be waiting. The first night, the motel parking lot was eerily quiet. The only sound the distant hum of the interstate and the occasional flicker of a dying streetlight. Daniel sat on the concrete steps outside Mia and Liam's room, his back against the railing, his pistol resting on his knee. Every nerve in his body was alert, his ears straining for the slightest sound out of place. Inside, he could hear the soft murmur of Mia's voice as she spoke to Jess, the occasional creak of the bed as Liam shifted in his sleep. The kid had been through hell today. They all had. Daniel checked his watch. 2:17 a.m. He exhaled slowly, rolling the tension out of his shoulders. He'd been in worse situations, far worse, but this felt different. This wasn't a war zone with clear enemies and rules of engagement. This was shadowy, personal. A man like Rick Dawson didn't just let go of a grudge. A soft click made him tense. The motel room door cracked open, and Mia slipped outside, wrapping her arms around herself against the chill. She'd changed into an oversized sweatshirt and leggings, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes. You should be sleeping, Daniel said quietly. She leaned against the railing beside him, staring out at the empty lot. Can't. He didn't push. He knew that kind of exhaustion, the kind that came from adrenaline crashing, from fear settling deep into your bones. After a moment, Mia spoke again. Liam asked if you were staying. Daniel glanced at her. What did you tell him? That you were keeping watch. She hesitated. He said that made him feel safe. Something tightened in Daniel's chest. He didn't know how to respond to that, so he just nodded. Mia rubbed her arms. Jess thinks I'm overreacting, that we should just go home, let the police handle it. Daniel kept his voice low, steady. What do you think? She let out a shaky breath. I think that man, Rick, he looked at Liam like he was owed him, like he had some kind of right. Her voice cracked. And I think people like that don't just stop. Daniel didn't disagree. He'd seen that look before, in the eyes of men who thought the world belonged to them. Before he could respond, a noise cut through the silence. A car engine. Slow. Idling. Daniel was on his feet in an instant, his body blocking me as he scanned the lot. The sound was coming from the far side of the motel, near the dumpsters. Too deliberate to be someone lost. Mia's breath hitched. Daniel. He raised a hand, silencing her. Get inside. Lock the door. She didn't argue. The second the door clicked shut behind her, Daniel moved, keeping to the shadows as he edged toward the sound. His fingers tightened around his pistol. The engine cut off. Silence. Then a door creaked open. Daniel ducked behind a parked truck, peering around the bumper. A figure stepped out of a dark sedan, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hoodie pulled low over his face. The man glanced around, then reached back into the car and pulled something out. A duffel bag. Daniel's muscles coiled. Weapon? Supplies? The man slung the bag over his shoulder and started walking, not toward the motel rooms, but toward the office. Daniel held his breath. The man knocked on the office door. A light flicked on inside. The clerk, an elderly man with a cane, shuffled to the window, squinting out. After a beat, he unlocked the door. The stranger stepped inside. Daniel exhaled. Just a late check-in. But something still felt off. He waited until the man disappeared into the office, then slipped back toward Mia's room. He knocked twice, their agreed signal, and the door opened immediately. Mia's face was pale. Was it them? Daniel shook his head. Don't think so, but we're not taking chances. He pulled out his phone and dialed Jess's burner. She answered on the first ring, voice groggy. Yeah. Pack up. We're leaving. 10 minutes later, they were back on the road, Jess's SUV cutting through the darkness. Liam slept in the back seat, his head pillowed on Mia's lap. Jess gripped the wheel, her knuckles white. This is insane, she muttered. We're running from shadows. Daniel, riding ahead on his motorcycle, scanned the mirrors. No headlights, no signs of pursuit. But he couldn't shake the feeling they were being played. The cabin was their best shot. Remote, isolated, a place no one knew about. Assuming they got there unseen. Assuming they weren't already followed. The highway stretched ahead, endless and dark. Somewhere out there, Rick Dawson's friends were waiting, and Daniel would be ready. The road to nowhere. The pre-dawn light painted the smoky mountains in shades of deep blue and charcoal as Daniel led the SUV up the winding gravel road. His motorcycle's headlight cut through the mist, revealing patches of uneven terrain and overhanging branches that scraped against the roof of Jess's car like skeletal fingers. In the rear-view mirror, he could see Mia's face press against the window, her eyes wide and wary. Liam was awake now, clutching Rex with one hand and the door handle with the other, his small body tense with every bump in the road. The cabin wasn't much, just a weathered A-frame tucked into a thicket of pine trees, with a rusted metal roof and a porch that sagged in the middle. Daniel had bought it for cash 5 years ago, a quiet escape after his last tour. No paperwork, no paper trail. He killed the engine and dismounted, his boots crunching on gravel as he approached the SUV. Jess rolled down her window, her face tight with exhaustion. This is it. Daniel nodded. Home sweet home. Liam unbuckled and scrambled out before Mia could stop him, his sneakers kicking up dust as he darted toward the porch. It's like a fort. Mia caught up to him, her hand on his shoulder. Stay close, okay? Daniel unlocked the door, the hinges groaning in protest. The inside was musty but clean, a wood stove in the corner, a threadbare couch, a kitchenette with a chipped enamel sink. A single hallway led to 2 small bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub. Jess set down her bag with a thud. No electricity? Generator out back, Daniel said. It's rough, but it's safe. Mia ran a hand over the dusty countertop. How long do we stay? Daniel met her gaze. Until the police catch Dawson's friends. Liam tugged on his sleeve. Do you have marshmallows? Daniel blinked. What? For the fire. Liam pointed to the stove. You can't have a cabin without marshmallows. For the first time in hours, Daniel felt the ghost of a smile. I'll add it to the supply list. By midday, the cabin had taken on a semblance of order. Jess had aired out the bedrooms while Mia scrubbed the kitchen. Liam, under strict orders not to wander, had appointed himself deputy of sticks, collecting a pile of kindling by the porch. Daniel checked the perimeter, tripped wires at the tree line, motion sensors near the generator. He'd parked the SUV behind the cabin, out of sight from the road. It wasn't a fortress, but it would do. He found Mia on the porch, her arms wrapped around herself as she stared into the trees. Jess is sleeping, she said softly. Liam, too. Daniel leaned against the railing. You should rest. She shook her head. Every time I close my eyes, I see that gun. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fears. Then from inside the cabin, Liam's voice piped up. Mom, I'm hungry. Mia exhaled, pushing off the railing. Duty calls. Daniel followed her inside, where Liam sat cross-legged on the couch. Rex perched beside him. What's the menu, chef? Daniel asked. Liam grinned. Peanut butter sandwiches. And marshmallows. If we had any. Daniel ruffled his hair. Next supply run, kid. Jess emerged from the bedroom, her hair mussed. Supply run? Daniel nodded. Nearest town is 20 minutes south. I'll go tonight after dark. Mia's hand stilled on the bread bag. Alone. Less noticeable. He caught her worried look. I'll be careful. Liam held up a crayon and a piece of paper. I can make a list. Jess snorted. God help us. As Liam scribbled with exaggerated concentration, Daniel's phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Deputy Harris. Dawson's phone records show calls to a burner. Last ping was near Knoxville. Stay sharp. Daniel deleted the message. Knoxville was an hour's drive from here. Too close. Nightfall came early in the mountains, the trees swallowing the sun whole. Daniel geared up, pistol in his waistband, knife in his boot, cash in his pocket. No credit cards. No trail. Mia met him at the door, her arms crossed. You sure about this? He adjusted his jacket. We need food, batteries, and yes, marshmallows. She didn't smile. Hurry back. Liam, half asleep on the couch, lifted his head. Don't forget the chocolate. Daniel saluted. Sir, yes, sir. The ride down the mountain was tense, his headlight cutting through the fog like a blade. Every shadow seemed to move. Every engine sound made his shoulders tense. But the town was quiet. Just a gas station, a dingy grocery, and a shuttered hardware store. He parked behind the grocery, out of sight, and pulled his hood up. Inside, he moved fast, canned goods, bottled water, a first aid kit. At the checkout, the clerk, a pimpled teen with earbuds in, barely glanced at him. Then, as Daniel reached for his cash, the clerk's eyes flicked to the TV above the counter. A news bulletin. Daniel's blood turned to ice. The screen showed a grainy gas station photo of him. From the rest stop, the cheering read, Marines sought for questioning in highway shooting. Daniel dropped the cash on the counter and bolted. They weren't just looking for Mia and Liam. They were looking for him. The trap. The grocery store door slammed behind Daniel as he sprinted to his motorcycle. The paper bag of supplies clutched under one arm. His mind raced. Why was his picture on the news? He hadn't fired first at the motel. He'd acted in self-defense, in defense of Mia and Liam. This was a setup. It had to be. He threw a leg over the bike and cranked the engine, his pulse hammering in his throat. The road back to the cabin was dark, the trees pressing in on both sides like a tunnel. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every turn, a potential ambush. He pulled out his burner phone and dialed Mia. She answered on the first ring, her voice tight. Daniel. Don't turn on the TV, he said, cutting straight to it. Don't turn on anything that connects to the outside. My face is on the news. A sharp inhale. What? They're saying I'm wanted for questioning in the shooting. It's bullshit, but it means someone's manipulating this. His grip tightened on the handlebars. I'm 10 minutes out. Be ready to move. He hung up before she could respond, pushing the bike faster. The cabin was dark when he arrived, just as he'd left it. No lights, no movement. Daniel killed the engine and listened. Crickets, wind in the trees. Then a faint click, the sound of a safety being thumbed off. Daniel dropped to the ground just as a bullet whizzed over his head, embedding itself in the cabin wall. Ambush. He rolled behind a stack of firewood, drawing his pistol. Another shot rang out, splintering the wood near his shoulder. From inside the cabin, Liam screamed. Daniel's blood turned to fire. He returned fire blindly. 3 shots toward the tree line where the muzzle flash had come from. A grunt of pain. Someone was hit. Then chaos. 2 more figures burst from the tree line, guns raised. Daniel ducked as bullets peppered the ground around him. He needed cover, needed to get inside. A window shattered. Mia, firing Rick's stolen pistol from the bedroom. One of the attackers went down, clutching his leg. Daniel used the distraction to sprint for the porch, diving to the front door as another bullet tore through the wood beside him. Mia stood in the hallway, her hands shaking around the gun. Jess was behind her, shielding Liam with her body. Back door, Daniel ordered. Now. They didn't argue. Jess grabbed Liam and bolted for the rear exit. While Mia covered them, her jaw set. Daniel yanked open a cupboard and pulled out a hunting rifle he kept stashed there. He chambered around and tossed Mia a box of ammo. Can you shoot? She caught it. I can now. A boot kicked in the front door. Daniel didn't hesitate. He fired through the wall, and a man cried out. Go! He barked at Mia. She ran for the back as Daniel laid down suppressing fire. The cabin was compromised. They had to disappear. He backed toward the hallway, firing twice more, then turned and sprinted after Mia. The woods behind the cabin were a maze of shadows. Jess was already ahead, dragging Liam by the hand toward the old hunting trail Daniel had shown them earlier. Mia waited at the tree line, her face pale but determined. Where now? She gasped. Daniel slung the rifle over his shoulder. Deeper in, there's a ranger station 6 miles east. We can call for help from there. Liam stumbled, his breath coming in ragged sobs. Daniel scooped him up without breaking stride. The boy clung to him, his face buried in Daniel's neck. I dropped Rex, he whimpered. Daniel tightened his grip. I'll get you a new one. Behind them, shouts echoed through the trees. Their hunters weren't giving up, and Daniel was done running. He passed Liam to Mia. Follow the trail. Don't stop for anything. Her eyes widened. You're not coming? He checked the rifle's magazine. I'll catch up. For a second, she looked like she'd argue. Then she nodded sharply and turned, pulling Liam with her into the dark. Daniel melted into the trees, circling back toward the cabin. Time to turn the hunters into the hunted. The first man died quickly, a clean shot to the throat as he crashed through the underbrush. The second, smarter, moved in silence. Daniel tracked him by the occasional snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves. Then a whisper of fabric. Daniel spun and fired. The man fell with a choked gasp. Daniel approached cautiously, kicking the gun away from the dying man's hand. Who sent you? He demanded. The man coughed blood, his lips curling in a smirk. Dawson sends his regards. Then his body went slack. Daniel exhaled sharply. 3 down. But how many more were out there? He stripped the dead man of his weapons and ammo, then vanished back into the trees. Somewhere ahead, Mia and Liam were still running, and he'd be damned if he let Dawson's men catch them. Blood in the soil. The forest was alive with the sounds of pursuit. Crackling branches, hissed curses, the occasional metallic clink of a weapon. Daniel moved like a shadow, his boots barely disturbing the damp earth as he tracked the hunters stalking Mia and Liam. He counted 4 distinct voices. That meant at least one more was unaccounted for. A twig snapped to his left. Daniel froze, pressing himself against the broad trunk of an oak. A flashlight beam swept the underbrush, illuminating patches of moss and tangled roots. The man holding it was bulky, his face obscured by a black ski mask. He moved with the cautious precision of someone who'd done this before. Daniel waited until the beam passed, then lunged. One hand clamped over the man's mouth. The other drove his combat knife between his ribs. The man jerked, a wet gasp escaping his throat before Daniel lowered him silently to the ground. No gunfire. No alarm. For a left, he stripped the body of its radio and earpiece, pressing the device to his own ear. Static, then a voice, rough with impatience. Echo 3, check in. Daniel smiled grimly. Now, he had their channels. Mia's lungs burned as she hauled Liam up another steep incline, just pulling him from above. The boy was flagging, his small legs trembling with exhaustion, but he hadn't complained once. A branch cracked somewhere below them. Jess froze. Did you hear? Mia clamped a hand over Liam's mouth, her pulse roaring in her ears. The forest had gone eerily quiet. No owls, no crickets. Just the whisper of wind through the leaves. Then a radio crackled. Lost him near the ridge. Fan out south. The voice was close. Too close. Mia motioned for Jess to keep moving, then reached for the pistol Daniel had given her. Her hands shook, but her grip was firm. Liam tugged her sleeve, his eyes wide. Is Daniel coming back? She forced a nod. Yes, but we have to be ready. Jess hissed from ahead. Mia, now. They scrambled up the ridge, gravel skittering underfoot. The moon broke through the clouds, illuminating a narrow deer path that wound along the mountainside. Somewhere in the darkness behind them, a man cursed. Mia turned, raising the pistol. A flashlight beam speared through the trees, sweeping toward them. She fired. The light shattered. A scream echoed through the night. Then returned fire. Bullets tore into dirt at their feet. Jess yanked Liam behind a boulder as Mia ducked beside them, her breath coming in ragged gasps. We can't outrun them, Jess whispered, her voice frantic. Mia checked the pistol's magazine. 3 rounds left. Then we don't run. Daniel heard the gunfire and broke into a sprint, radio chatter flooding his earpiece. Contact Northeast Ridge. 2 females, 1 juvenile. Flushed them out. He crested a rise just in time to see Mia fire again, driving back a shadowy figure advancing on their position. Smart girl. She'd picked a defensible spot. But they were pinned down. Daniel unslung the rifle. Time to even the odds. He took a knee, exhaled, and squeezed the trigger. The first shot took the nearest hunter in the back, dropping him mid-stride. The second shot clipped another's shoulder, sending him stumbling into a tree. Chaos erupted. Sniper in the trees. Daniel grinned and fired again. Mia didn't understand why the gunfire had stopped. Then she saw them, the hunters turning, scattering like startled deer as shots rang out from the darkness. One clutched his throat and collapsed. Another screamed as his knee exploded in a spray of blood. And then, like a nightmare-given form, a figure emerged from the trees. Daniel, rifle smoking, his face streaked with dirt and sweat. He didn't speak, just jerked his chin toward the path ahead. Mia didn't need to be told twice. They ran. The ranger station was a squat concrete building half buried in ivy, its windows boarded, its door hanging crooked on its hinges. Abandoned. Jess kicked the door open, her arms shaking as she dragged Liam inside. Now what? Daniel barred the door behind them, his breathing steady despite the blood soaking his sleeve. Now we wait for daylight. Mia grabbed his arm. You're hurt. Graze. He shrugged her off, peering through a crack in the boards. They'll regroup. Come at us harder. Liam huddled in the corner, his arms wrapped around his knees. I want to go home. Daniel's jaw tightened. He crouched in front of the boy, his voice softer than Mia had ever heard it. I know, kid, but first, we finish this. Outside, branches snapped. Daniel stood, rifle ready. The hunters were coming, and this time there was nowhere left to run. The last stand. The ranger station reeked of mildew and rust, the air thick with a metallic tang of blood and sweat. Daniel pressed his back against the wall beside the door, his rifle braced against his shoulder. Outside, footsteps crunched through the underbrush, slow, deliberate. They were being surrounded. Mia crouched next to Liam behind an overturned desk, her pistol gripped in both hands. Jess hovered over them, a rusted fire poker clutched like a weapon. The boy's breathing was too fast, his small fingers digging into Mia's arm. "Daniel," Mia whispered. He didn't turn. "How many bullets?" "2. He tossed her a spare magazine from his belt. "Make them count." A shadow passed by the window. Daniel held his breath. Then silence. Too quiet. A voice cut through the dark, rough with amusement. "Maureen, you in there?" Daniel's finger hovered over the trigger. He knew that voice. Dawson. Somehow, the bastard had made bail. Dawson chuckled. "I gotta say, Reyes, you're a hard man to kill." Daniel stayed silent. "Here's the deal," Dawson called. "You walk out now. Hands up, we let the woman and kid go. You don't." A pause. "Well, let's just say I brought something special for them." A new sound cut through the night. The whimper of a child. Not Liam. Another kid. Daniel's stomach turned. Mia's eyes widened. What the hell? Dawson's voice turned sickly sweet. "Liam? You in there, buddy? Your friend Tyler misses you." Liam stiffened. "Tyler's my classmate." Just made a strangled noise. "He took another kid?" Daniel's mind raced. A bluff? Or was Dawson truly this unhinged? Then a flashlight flicked on outside, illuminating a small, terrified boy in a Spider-Man shirt, held in place by a hulking man with a knife to his throat. Liam gasped, "That's Tyler." Dawson's grin was audible. "Tick-tock, Marine." Daniel met Mia's gaze. Her face was pale, but she gave a tiny nod. "Do what you have to." Daniel exhaled. "All right, I'm coming out." He set the rifle down slowly, then raised his hands and stepped into the doorway. Moonlight washed over the clearing. 5 men, armed. Dawson front and center, his face bruised from his arrest, but his smirk intact. The man holding Tyler was built like a linebacker, his knife glinting. Dawson spread his arms. "See? Civilized." Daniel kept his voice steady. "Let the kid go. After you kneel." A beat. Then Daniel lowered himself to his knees, his hands still raised. Dawson laughed and turned toward the station. "Mia, come on out. You're a hero surrendering." Silence. Then the creak of the door. Mia stepped out, her pistol hidden behind her back. Her voice shook. "Let Tyler go." Dawson winked. All in good time. He nodded to his men. Checked the station. 2 hunters moved forward, guns raised. Daniel tensed. Then hell broke loose. Mia whipped the pistol up and fired, not at Dawson, but at the man holding Tyler. The bullet took him in the shoulder, making him stagger. The knife clattered to the ground. Tyler didn't hesitate. He bit the man's arm and bolted toward the trees. Dawson roared, "Killed him!" Daniel moved. He lunged for the rifle he'd left just inside the door, rolling as bullets tore into wood around him. A round grazed his thigh, but he barely felt it. Mia dubbed behind a rotting picnic table as return fire chewed it to splinters. Jess burst from the station, swinging the fire poker like a bat. It connected with a hunter's skull with a sickening crack. And Liam ran, not away, toward Tyler. Daniel's heart stopped. "Liam, no!" The boy skidded to his knees beside Tyler, who was sobbing under a bush. Liam grabbed his hand. "Come on." Dawson saw his chance. He raised his pistol. Daniel fired first. The bullet took Dawson in the chest, knocking him backward. His men froze for 1 critical second. That was all Daniel needed. He shot the nearest hunter in the throat. Mia took out another. Jess clubbed a third across the knees. The last man turned and ran. Silence. Then sirens. Distant but getting closer. Daniel staggered to his feet, blood dripping down his leg. Mia sprinted to Liam, crushing both boys in a hug. Jess leaned against the station, her face streaked with dirt and tears. Dawson groaned, clutching his chest. "You don't win." Daniel walked over, his shadow falling across the dying man. "Yeah, we do." The sirens wailed louder. It was over. Epilogue 1 month later. The news called it a kidnapping ring dismantled. Dawson surviving men rolled over on each other, revealing a string of crimes across 3 states. Tyler was home safe. Liam was back in school, though he now carried Rex everywhere. And Daniel? He stood on Mia's porch in Nashville, duffel bag in hand. She crossed her arms. You sure you won't stay? He nodded toward Liam, who was showing Tyler how to do the silent SOS signal in the yard. He doesn't need me anymore. Mia's smile was sad. I didn't ask about him. Daniel hesitated. Then he kissed her forehead. I'll visit. As he walked to his bike, Liam tore across the lawn and hugged him fiercely. You're still my best friend, he whispered. Daniel ruffled his hair. Always, deputy. Then he revved the engine and rode into the sun. FIM,